Hi, I'm Brian Poole, and if you're in the right place, you're in a green screen class with me. We're going to go over a bunch of stuff green screen related. First, a little bit about me. Hi, sorry to interrupt. I wanted to make a couple comments. The video that you're watching is a little bit choppy. I pre-recorded it and then realized I was way over and had to chop out some conversation and stuff. So if it skips a little, it was nothing that you really missed. Number two is that the extra footage is kind of green screening 2.0. So this class is getting you started in green screening and the things I think you need to know right now. Version 2 is posted on my YouTube site so that if you watch this class and you're like, hey, how did he get himself in a Millennium Falcon? And a bunch of other things. That's in number 2. That's also posted on our website at youtube.nationaltrail.us. If you haven't been to any of my classes before, I am a teacher, tech coordinator, and tech integration specialist here at National Trail Local Schools. We are a small K through 12 all-inclusive school in rural Ohio and Preble County. And my contact information is up over here. One of the things, if you've been to any of my classes before, you know, I'm kind of an evangelist on a couple of things. Using a good learning management system to augment your school curriculum like Moodle. And I'm big on recording classes. I've been recording every class since 2005 in my classroom when I went to a SMART presentation by Brett Ginsburg, who back in 2005, 6, and 7 was a mainstream hit at what was then eTech Ohio, which is now OETC. Brett taught a lot about smart boards in general, but if you took away the instruction that he gave and integrated it to whatever digital whiteboard, and in all teaching situations, you really could carry a lot away from Brett. And back then I started recording all my classes, and one of the things Brett talked about was teaching to the absent child, not to the child that was there, so that if you recorded your class and a student was absent for any reason, they could make up the class and understand what was going on. Well, that's what got me started on my journey of recording classes. I've got a lot more reasons, and I've changed a lot of things since way back then. So let's look at the reasons I think you should record classes for students. So the first reason I think you should record class is obviously that thing that Brett Ginsburg talked about, which is for the student that misses class. But I go a little step further. It's not for the student that misses class physically, also for the student who misses class virtually. There are a lot of times there are students in our classroom that for any reason, sleep last night, difficulties at home, problems with other students, may not be there all the way, may not be paying attention to the lesson that you're given that day. And even if they are, they might be ADD, ADHD, phase out, come back. All of a sudden you're on something different and they missed out entirely and didn't even know why. So I add that both physically and virtually. And when I made that change, because when I first started recording, the videos were only accessible to students that missed on that day. Well, if you teach high school and you think that a student's gonna not pay attention to you so they get to watch you later for an hour or more on their video screen, that's probably crazy. In reality, students that phase out of class or are there but miss something, watch my videos, but they watch them for 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. They stop in, they find what they missed or didn't understand. They watch that small section and then they close it out and they're done. So I added that. Now, since 2012, I started a YouTube channel with all my classes. And then probably not until 2016 did I start thinking about, well, the easiest way to access instead of having channels and playlists, I just post it right on my school calendar. They can go to any day, see what the lecture was, and review or get that thing that they missed right off my classroom calendar. I still teach to the absent, and I put or absent-minded child when I do classroom recordings. And I realize this class is about green screen, but green screening is just a step past that. A little more preparation, a little more flexibility, a little more freedom to be anywhere in a green screen, and a little more ability to capture the imagination and attention of your students, which are, whether we like to think of them that way or not, our audience, right? So we teach to the absent or absent-minded child. It also allows any student that needs remediation to get that lecture again, so that they can listen to, hear, see whatever you presented a second, a third time, that maybe makes that thing click. It allows then that any time, any place, any pace learning to put you at the speed they learn at. And I tell my students, if I'm talking too fast, put me on 0.75. If I'm talking too slow, put me on 1.25. YouTube allows me as a viewer to speed up and slow down the presenter to the speed that I can absorb it at. There's a lot of times I watch YouTube videos and I put them on 2 times until they get to that meat that I was looking for, and then I go and slow them down to the speed, pause, rewind to whatever I need. And students like to be able to do the same thing. Parents can see what their students are doing in a class anytime. And I know this is one of the parts that worries a lot of teachers. They can see what happened in my class. Well, it depends on how you do it, right? Doing a screen capture recording with no video, like no me here, it is perfectly acceptable. But really my feedback from both teachers and students is if they're going to watch it as primary instruction, they want the presenter in the thing. If you were watching this and all you got was the screen and the voice, it's not the same thing at all, and there's no connection to the presenter. My voice doesn't let you see who I am. It just lets you know there's somebody there. But by seeing the presenter talking to the class, there's a connection that's made. It may be one way, but the connection is still there. But what I was going to say is parents can view it and see what's going on. Now, I was saying, I know that's a worry for some teachers. And maybe so. Maybe it is a valid worry for some teachers. It shouldn't be. If we're doing professional planned teaching in our class, there should be no reason that a parent can't see what's going on. If something happens that makes that inappropriate to show to parents, a student says something about another teacher or another student, or they make the mistake of saying each other's full name in class, which is something that I have to teach my students. We don't say Brad Smith. You can say Brad. There's no student list. They don't know who you're talking to, and the students are never in the video, or rarely in the video without prior permission. And you can always edit them and cut things out if you need to. So we can use different examples in class. A big thing in a math class, if first block you record and do one set of problems, and second class you do a different set, and third period you do a different set, then those students in those classes can see a whole nother set of examples that they can get out of watching your video. Now, that doesn't really apply to green screening because obviously we're not going to make 3 sets of videos. But if I'm recording my class, I'm going to make a point of doing different examples. That's nothing to you, right? You know your content. You know how to do the math problem. Doing a different math problem to you is the same thing, right? But to a student that sees different examples, it can make a big difference. So that's one of the other reasons that I feel like recording class makes a big difference. The other one is for blended learning activities. Since I started recording my class back in 2012, and I didn't retire until December of 2017, if I was ever going to do reserve duty, going to be gone for a conference, going to be gone at a tech meeting, I had a recording of my class, of me teaching, that I could turn into a blended learning activity for my students. And I'm going to go through how I set up those blended learning activities now in this class. But you have a repository that's good for you that you know is the material you cover. And I truly believe that when you record yourself, it will help make you a better teacher. I have had people walk into my room while I'm playing a video. I'm listening to myself teach to see what I could have done better, What could I have clarified more? I don't watch every class every day. We don't have time to do that. And knowing that I'm going to be recorded and posted in the first place, I think makes me prep a little bit more for the class that we're about to do. So these are just some of the reasons on the why. I think recording your class is great. This is not a class on recording your class, although the things that we do here, you could obviously do in a classroom without the green screen part, and I'll kind of point that out as we go along here. So, okay, for those of you that are still here live with me, I want to point out that everything is fine, and I'm just pausing for a second. I'm still online with live Q&A, and I will be happy to answer questions as we go. One of the advantages of green screening is that you can be anywhere, and your imagination is your only limitation. You can go and make things captivating for your students. Wait a second, I don't have time to make a TV show every single class just to keep them entertained. That's not me. Yeah, it's not a TV show. I'm not saying it's supposed to be a TV show. That doesn't mean we can't try to engage our learners in new ways, especially when we're trying to get them to come online with us and watch it when we're not in the room at all. Look, it's their job to find my content. It's not my job to make them come to my content. They just need to come and look for me. Point well taken. We don't all have time to do it. You can go. We don't have time to do everything. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying every single video I do is perfect. I'm not saying they're all engaging, that I do something funny, that I try to get them to watch it for the time I messed up. But our students are our audience. And when we're trying to do blended learning, when we're trying to engage our students to come back to get our content, whether it's in the classroom that they're watching the video, or more importantly, while this whole quarantine thing is going on, if students are at home and we want them to watch us teach, I think it behooves us to put a little bit more effort into how we're teaching. Maybe it's the same instruction, maybe it's the same PowerPoint, smart notebook file, whatever you use in your classroom with your digital whiteboard. Maybe it's exactly the same, but now we can incorporate multimedia that maybe we didn't incorporate before, and we can try to break it up better than we did before and have formative assessments along the way so that we know whether the students watched it. We don't want to talk for 20 minutes straight, 30 minutes straight, help all students 80 minutes straight, and hope that they got all the content. We have to break up our instruction. So in my classroom, after going through everything we went through in the spring of 2020, I decided to re-record every single one of my classes. And one of the things I did when I re-recorded them is I found what cameras worked, what made me sound better. Right now, I'm in my basement. I'm not in front of some great green screen studio. I'm actually the opposite. This is where I'm actually at. I'm actually just sitting at a table and a cropped off camera in front of nothing. Well, not in front of nothing. I'm actually right here. I'm in my basement with a sheet hung up behind me, $26 sheet that I bought on Amazon. And because it's my basement, I had to buy some shop lights that are around me, basically illuminating the screen behind me so that there's enough light so the green screen works. At school, I've got a different setup. I'm not at school right now, but if I was, my room would look like this. We just painted the wall and it works perfectly. You can actually even see that it looks smoother because that green screen paint that we got really did a nice job of flattening out any reflection as well. So that's what my environment looks like where I'm green screening. I originally tried blue screening before I realized that green is far superior to blue. In fact, this is my basement before I got that green screen off Amazon. I just had 2 99-cent from the dollar store tablecloths that I taped to the wall. And you know what? It worked. Didn't work as well. I had speckling around and stuff that I don't have anymore. But if you're trying to just try it on a nickel, that you can start really basic. You can start with the webcam that's on your laptop. You can start with the webcam that you plug in on a USB, and you can build up to that expensive $89 camera that I'm using right now. As far as the screen goes, the one that I've had the most success with is the one that I'm using behind me right now, and I made a bit.ly for that. The reason I like this one is because it has a sewn-in loop that in the case of my room right now, I've got an old iron pipe just running through the end of that. And then I've just got a clip on either side that the pipe hangs through from when I actually redid the plumbing in my house. And at school, you can just run a piece of rope right through that and hang it from either side of your room. So this is the ag teacher's room. We just got him the same one that's hanging up on the wall behind me right now. And it's the biggest one, width and length, that I found. This one is long enough for me to have it. It comes all the way down to the ground from an 8-foot ceiling and then comes out another 4 feet. So if I wanted to do a green screen that included all the way down to my feet and being in a different location, I could. And here's a for instance I did with my wife. She's doing a youth service lesson from the inside of a whale. Obviously it's about Jonah and the whale, and you can see it goes all the way down on the ground, and you can literally be anywhere in your green screen if you have one that's long enough. And you may think I'd never want to do that, but you never know when you're going to want to be on the inside of a whale. So the next thing I wanted to share with you is an Amazon shortened one to the bucket of paint that we used in the classroom. The screen is far less expensive. In fact, let's look at the current price of the screen just so. The screen right now is $23.20 on Amazon. And like I said, it's very large, it's 9 by 13. The paint you can see is $114.97 right now, far more expensive than the $23 sheet. It was only $99 when I got it, and I will tell you that I really like the paint in my room. If you're going to do something permanent and your maintenance department is willing to do it, I think it is well worth it. So let's talk about the other materials. Those are the only two things I'm going to give you for a screen, besides obviously talking about going to the dollar store and buying a tablecloth. As far as the camera, you're going to see an example of using this camera, which is poor. Number one, it's an old camera. It's a low-res camera. You can do it with it. A newer webcam is far better. This one is currently $89.59. If you go on Amazon and see one that looks just like it, it's probably the same camera. It's listed a bunch of different ways by a bunch of different people. I've gotten 4 of them for the school now. None of them are the same listing. I just get whichever one's the least expensive, and they have worked great. The last thing I want to say about webcams is if you buy a webcam, make sure it's 1080p. I think you're going to find that if you buy a high-end webcam, you might as well get the camera I just showed you. But if you've got one, it will work great as your camera and mic to get you started. I wanted to mention microphones. If you're using one in the webcam, that's great. But if you find that it's not getting the sound you want, I wanted to show you a couple options that we've used. The first one is the one that every teacher has at National Trail. We got these for every single classroom so that if you were recording your class for students that were online, it would pick up really well. So I used this microphone for years, and it works great. The problem with it, and the reason I'm not using it right now, is that when you record from this microphone in a large empty space, sometimes it sounds like you're in a large empty space. So because I do a lot of PD videos, I tried a couple other microphones out. The first one was a suggestion from Ryan Collins's podcast, Educate Me, and it's only $19.99. It's the one I'm using right now. It's just a USB lapel mic. Works great as long as you're not going to move around while you're teaching. So the other option that I have, and this is what I use in my classroom, is this wireless lapel mic. It's a little more expensive. USB dongle plugs into my PC, charges wireless or charges through a micro USB, and then it's got the same kind of lapel mic cable. I just wear it on my belt. The great thing about it is because I'm a walker in my classroom while I'm teaching, my sound would vary in and out as I was roaming around the room. Now that I use this to record in my classes, I get perfect audio all the time. It sounds really good, and you almost can never hear the students, which a lot of teachers are concerned about. So I repeat questions if somebody asks this question so that it's on the audio for the person watching later. So I just wanted to point out those other options as far as hardware. That's it as far as hardware. So you could do all this for $1. That's it for hardware. Let's get going on the software now. So as we get started with OBS Studio, let me point out a couple things. First of all, the only difference between this and traditional screen capture, which you may have done on your own, which I did for years using Smart Recorder, was the fact that you're in it now, or some video feed is in it. You can still do the screen capture the way you used to do if you don't want to be in it. But like I said, my feedback from students and staff was that anytime they're watching any kind of video for over 5 minutes, they really want the presenter to be in it. So that's why I went to using OBS Studio. Now you don't have to use it to green screen. You can use it to screen capture just like I'm doing right now. Of course I am green screened in this one, but you don't have to. I could just have the actual backgrounds in me, around me here and where I'm at. It just looks a little better when screen in my opinion. So it works basically the same way as just doing a screen capture, but it's free. You have the video to edit when you're done, and then I just upload it to YouTube once I'm complete. OBS Studio stands for Open Broadcaster Software. It's completely free. You can see right here on the download page at obsproject.com that it's available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. So a full-featured PC-ish, but this laptop that I'm doing it on right now is a second-generation i5 with 8 gig of RAM. I'm not using any big high-end system. I don't need to. OBS Studio does a pretty good job on its own. The only time it becomes a factor is if all of a sudden you're adding 2 and 3 cameras at the same time when you're recording. It's what I do during graduation. I use OBS Studio and have multiple cameras. You need a higher end laptop to do multiple camera and multiple video feeds at the same time. So we're going to go through and install and set up OBS Studio next, and then show you how to configure it with your webcam and get rolling with green screening. I would just be downloading this to whatever location you have. Once it downloads, you just double click on it and run through the installer. It is going to ask you one question when it installs, and that's going to be, do you want to set this up to record or to stream? And it changes the setup parameters of OBS Studio depending on which one you're going to do. I would say you're going to record and not stream. Most people don't want to start out by streaming. They want to start out by recording and then uploading to YouTube so they have a little more control. I have used it to stream YouTube. We use it to stream every Sunday for our church. But when you get asked that one question, that's how you answer it. You want to open it up to record with. I've already got it installed, so let's go ahead and go to the settings. When I open OBS Studio, I have no sources to show, and I'm going to show you how to add just a couple sources that are the most prevalent ones that we use. So the first one I'm going to add is a camera. So I hit plus, and I'm going to add a video capture device. Now, if you have more than one, you can name it. I could name it HD Cam if I wanted to. You don't have to name it if you've only got one. I'm going to say OK, and then it pops up and you can see my camera and what it's showing of the room around me right now. If I could use the other camera, the integrated webcam, which I can't because it's already in use by the other version of OBS Studio Open Up, then I could add that one as well. So I'm going to just say OK. Now, the next thing I have to do is to decide what section of this camera I want to actually be videoed. So I'm going to right click here and say transform, edit transform. And what this lets me do is it lets me crop into where I want a green screen. You can see down here left and right. So I'm going to crop the left. I'm going to say 200. Let's see, did that get all the green? Yeah, it did. And I'm going to crop the right. I'm going to say 250. Oh, didn't get it all. I'm trying to get that monitor off my screen as well. Let's see, 300. Still not enough. I just want that monitor out of my picture. There we go. And I'm going to, because I barely got in the left, I'm going to bring the left in to, let's say 250. There we go. That's good enough. I don't want my bottom of my screen showing down here, so I'm going to go ahead and crop that up as well. Let's see, I'm going to crop it up to 130. So it just shows my table, and if I wanted to crop the top, we'll crop off a little bit of the top, I can do that as well. So now I've got this more defined area that I'm using to green screen in. You can see, and now I want to add the green screen effect itself. It is so easy. I click down here on the HD cam, I right click and say filters, and I'm going to add an effect filter, hit plus, and I'm going to add chroma key. If you're using a green screen, you don't have to do anything. You see how everything green just disappeared? I can mess with this similarity back and forth if it doesn't quite, if I get a lot of sparkle, I can mess with the smoothness as well. But you see, as soon as I say okay, I've just green screened to a black background that shows nothing else. So whatever else shows behind me. Now I can mess with where I want to be and how big I want to be. Here, I'm going to go ahead and put myself down into the side here for this process that I'm showing you, however you want to do it. And I'm going to go ahead and lock it. So now I can't move me accidentally. So that's the first thing I do is I'm going to add video. Now, it layers these sources that I'm going to add from top to bottom. So as I add things, I'm going to have to slide them below the cam if I want me to be seen. So the first thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to add an image. Now, when we add pictures, I can add multiple images, by the way. I'm just going to add one for now. You want to make sure you get a reasonably good quality image. If you're using Google Images to look for stuff, make sure you set it to large file size. You could name this as well. I'm going to go ahead and say okay. I'm going to browse to an image. I downloaded one, a map there that I'm going to go ahead and throw up behind me and say okay. And I'm going to stretch that to the size of my screen. Slide it up a little bit, and then I'm going to lock that, and I'm going to toss me on top of it. So this is a good example of maybe when I'm talking about this in my geography class, I might want to shrink me down a little bit so I'm off the size of the image that I'm talking about so I can talk to my students about this. You will have to get used to pointing. Right now, if I look at the image on my screen, it's to my right, so I have to point to my left. You can see that's where I trimmed, so I kind of cut off my hand as I'm pointing around here. You kind of get used to that. You always go the opposite of the way that it makes sense, because right now I want to point this way and it's over here. So that's an image, and you could do multiple images in one recording, and I can show you how to transition between different images as well. So that's an image, pretty easy. A video, we could add a media source. I'm going to go ahead and add a video, and you could, again, name that whatever you want it to be. I'm going to go ahead and browse to a video. And once I've selected that video, I'm going to say OK, and it immediately starts playing. I'm going to go ahead and double click on this video down here. I can say to loop this video, and it starts when I make the video viewable. So I could make it not viewable, slide it below me, and then have the video come in, and there I am sitting as everyone's getting sick, riding a high-speed train to wherever this is going. I think it's on the English countryside that we're seeing. Oh, that's disconcerting. I'm seeing me and me. I'm going to go ahead while we're doing this and remove one of me so there's not two of me at the same time. So that's a video file. You can actually scroll to wherever you want it to be on the video file. I could pause the recording, put it to where I want it, and then unpause the recording, have it start playing at the same time. The last thing, input, that you might want to have is a screen. So I'm going to go ahead and add that one, and you can say on this that you want to get a screen or display, capture. So I'm going to hit display capture. If you've got more than one display, you can name them if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and say OK, and I have two here. So we're going to capture the one we're not actually looking at. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to make this full screen. I'm going to slide it over here, and I'm going to lock that as well, and again, put me on top. And I'll lock these other ones and make them all go away other than my display capture. Now, if you do this, you're doing nothing different than if you're doing a screen capture video, which is what I do in my classroom. I'm using OBS Studio to put whatever I'm doing on the screen there, and then a camera of me teaching in the front of the classroom so that it's a video of me teaching my class, not just a screen capture with no interaction in the class. This is better because I'm looking at you, I'm talking to you, as opposed to I'm off to the side, but it's better than nothing. So those are really the four main sources that you might want to put for video. And I want to show you how you then can transition between one video and another. So I'm going to do what's called studio mode here. And when I go into studio mode, if I was recording, the thing on the right, the program, that's what's actively being recorded at any one time. The one on the left, the preview, is what I'm getting ready to record. So studio mode lets me do a more professional looking video and transition between things without having to edit later. And I think for all of us, if we can do our work without editing, that just takes time. And we're going to talk a little bit about editing at the end and what I use to video edit. But this class is really about how to get started and use it for free. So this is more important. So whatever I do on the right-hand side is not being recorded. So I'm going to turn off display capture and put on the image. And I'm going to say that we're doing whatever PowerPoint over here that we're talking about, and now I want to transition to a big image. So this transition button will transition, or I can do one of these transitions, and I'm going to change the transition. 300 milliseconds is really, really fast. I'm going to change it to 500, and you're going to see that's still really, really fast, but not as bad. So now if I hit the fade button while I'm talking, it fades to the new whatever I was previewing on the left-hand side. And then I can go to my next one while I'm talking, and now I'm going to switch to media source, and we're talking about how the train goes from Nevada to Colorado, which is up here, and it's going over to there in my class. You see that there's no video on the preview side. That's because video starts when it goes to the program side. So it's not going to start for you until you hit that fade, and as soon as I fade, it then fades to that thing. You can also use this to move you. So if I'm down here and I want to move where I'm at on the screen, and for instance, I want to be the conductor of this train, which won't really make sense, but let's pretend that I am. And they see this. Now if I hit the fade button, I fade over to the different location on the media as well. So not only can you fade whatever media source you have, whether it's the screen or a video or a picture, you can also change the cameras as well when you're doing that. So whatever I'm doing on the left-hand side, once I hit fade, this is a good example of This ratchety video that you see right now that's caused by my low-end laptop. You see it does a great job of getting stuff when it's, oh wow, this is disconcerting. I can hear myself in the background. Great job of getting stuff when it's, I don't have the audio over there. I'll just have to put up with it, and hopefully you will too. But it's because it can't render the video while it's playing video. That's when it gets ratchety, like adding multiple cameras. But if you've got a decent computer, this is not something that happens at all. Becomes the program that's actually being delivered and recorded on the other side. So that's what studio mode is for. Once we have everything set up, all of our activities that we do on OBS Studio are straight from this page. You're going to transition between, you're going to add sources, you're going to transition between things, and you're going to start and stop recording right there on that page. I'm checking out on the other screen to make sure I'm still getting audio, since like I said, I've already recorded this twice and lost it both times. So the last thing we need to go through is settings on OBS Studio right down here. Okay, let's go through the settings, and while we do that, I'm going to turn off this media source and put a nice little image behind us, just so it doesn't drive us crazy while we're doing that. And I guess I should add the capture device over here on this side, since we're going to lose me here. So when I go to settings, there's a bunch of settings here, and I will tell you that most of them you never have to touch. I don't ever touch anything in the general tab. Stream tab is only if you wanted to web stream to Twitch or to YouTube, and you'd have to set that up. If you're not doing that, pass right by stream. The only thing I do on the output one, I leave it all the way it is, except for I set a recording path so I know where my videos, when I hit stop, are going to. So I just make them go to the video folder on Windows, and that's good enough. Audio we do have to set up. You can see that everything under the audio sources is disabled by default, and we have to say where we want sound to come from. Do we want to be able to record the desktop audio? I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Why would you ever want the desktop audio? Because if we're playing a movie, a video file, and you want that to be included in it, you've got to have that included. It's going to sound better if you record desktop audio and turn off your mic than if you play it on your classroom speakers and then hope that it gets to your mic. Along with this is a great way to record an online video like YouTube or from some other site that you want a high quality video of it. You can set this up to capture the screen, to capture the desktop audio. You can hit record, you can play that file, you can stop, and now you've got a copy of whatever that YouTube or online video was for your use for whatever you want, and we do that all the time. So that's why you might have desktop audio. You have to set up some kind of microphone. Now you can just say default, and then whatever is being used as a mic is there. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to use the camera that we set up as an input right now, and then I'm going to hit apply and say OK and come back and look at that. Here's desktop audio right now. You can see us picking up that sound on that mic right there. I can always mute these things if I want to, so that they're not on the audio. For instance, if this was a YouTube I was going to record in the background, I turn on desktop audio sound, I turn off the mic to get the highest quality. If I'm teaching, I'm going to have the mic on, and if there's something like this one that you don't even want to show up, I can right click on it and say hide, and now it's gone, and I only have the ones that I want to turn on and off as audio sources. So there's audio. I'm going to go back into settings, and after audio, and I don't mess with any of these other settings down here. I don't need to. I'm going to go down to video, and in general, the video settings, if you've got a high resolution monitor, are probably great just the way they are. You can turn them up if you find that the video is not good enough. highest resolution video that YouTube thinks on their site that you should use is, oh, I'm at the wrong one, is 1920 by 1080. That gives you a 1080p video. So if you want to make the canvas 1920 by 1080, then you can also make the output 1920 by 1080. You can see they both now match. And that matches the aspect ratio of the screen anyways. It's just going to record a higher resolution of what I'm looking at on the screen to get a full 1080p video. So you can definitely do that. That's a setting that you only want to mess with if you've got a decent computer with at least 8 gig RAM. You're not going to want to increase that video if you've got an older one with only 4 gig, which hopefully none of you are in that awful situation. Obviously, if you have even more, that's even better. So that's on video. Other than that, there's nothing else I change on video. I'm going to go ahead and apply, and let's see. Is there anything else? I already went through. Nope. So the last thing on here that I use, and there's nothing on advanced, is hotkeys. And you can see I've got some hotkeys set up. Hotkeys give you the ability to do things without opening OBS Studio and without even looking. I've got a bunch of hotkeys set up on my classroom at work to be able to pause, mute, switch cameras. And so any key combination that you want to set up in OBS Studio, you can see every single thing that's possible on here is really on here. So for instance, if I want to mute the HD cam by hitting a key combination, I can set that up. If I want to change or mute my media source, if I want to mute the mic, for instance, I could make it Control-Alt-M to mute. So if I hit that on my keyboard, my mic's muted. I actually have that on my pauses so that in classroom, when I'm recording a class, if I go to a pause screen, it automatically mutes so that I can talk to my kids, walk around doing work problems, and it's not recording what we're talking about in the background because we're on a pause. And my students know in the video they should just scroll right through when they see the pause screen on our video. And along with that, you could make something show up. I guess I should point that out. So if we wanted to, for instance, make this image show up when I hit F1 and hide when I hit F2, I can go ahead and do that. I'm going to apply. So if I hit F2, it goes away. If I F1, it comes back. So maybe I'm talking about this in class. Oh, and you see I changed the resolution, so now it changed what the screen looks like and what it's showing here. That's one of the effects of what I just did. Everything just moved around. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and set it back to where it was on video because that's actually what I use down here. Screen. So I'd rather just leave it there while I'm doing it. That's it for settings, and that's it for really what you need to set up OBS Studio. You hang your screen behind you, you set up your camera, you add your inputs, and then you can go and transition back and forth between pictures and your desktop and your screens or whatever those sources are that you have here. You can set up different ones for different classes as well. If you're doing different things, you want different backgrounds, like I've got that hardware one you saw in my class. I've got one for PD and for advanced tech. Those are scene collections. And so right now I'm using the OETC theme. If I wanted to switch to my tech class one, we'd go and see whatever I used last. It looks like a Starship deck of some sort. I don't even remember doing that one. That we have here that we're using while we're doing that. So you can see I can make whole collections of scenes, and inside those collections I can make scenes down here that I can transition to back and forth, and you see it fades back and forth, so I can have whole different sets of things set up in a class ready to go with a different scene, and then just transition to that one as I go. I think that's it for all the settings that I use in OBS Studio. Like I said, I use it all the time, and I use it a lot, and it's very powerful, and it's never failed me, and it's free. So I highly encourage you to try that out when you're trying your green screen video. That's it for getting started with green screening in a 45-minute crash course. Obviously, I spent a little bit of time with philosophy as well as OBS Studio. Episode 2 is more, there's some examples from both student and teacher projects using OBS Studio and green screening, as well as some more advanced usages I'm going to talk about in episode 2. Okay, sorry, I'm coming back over there to talk a little bit more about a couple of the questions that people had. And I'm going to do it right here. There we go. So I can open up another version of OBS Studio to kind of answer that question that Mr. Studebaker just had. It's going to say, do you want to launch anyway? Yes, launch anyway. And I'm going to have to bring open another screen. I'm going to bring this one over here, and I'm going to, let's see, turn off, not me, presentation, all this good stuff, and turn on my what is still? Why is it way over there? There we go. That's what we want. Okay, so I've got that up there. I'm going to take off this background stuff just to make it easier. So the question was from Mr. Studebaker there. What do I have set up as the audio source then? And I am trying to see from a screen that's way too far away. Oh, no I don't, because I'm looking at my projection screen. So as far as my audio sources go on my settings, when I go to settings and I go to audio, I don't use default. As you can see, I've got a whole bunch of mics on here. And if I use default and I go and plug in my Logitech USB headset, and for some reason my color is really off right now. I am not purple. Anyways, if I plug in my Logitech USB headset, then all of a sudden that becomes the default mic. And then I go to record my class, and I walk around, and I get no audio because my mic is over there in the corner, and it's sitting on my PC, and you get the idea. So when I'm setting up OBS Studio to teach with, I set up a specific mic that I'm going to use. So I'm going to say, hey, I want to make sure my Yeti, which is not even on there because it's unplugged because I just took out the cart, but my Yeti is my microphone. So I make that the microphone that's on there. Now you can see up to 4 microphones on there, and when you do that, then you can turn on and off those microphone sound inputs right there. They'll all be listed as audio inputs. If you had all of them, then when you have this open, you just say, that's what I want to listen to today. That's what I want to come across on the stream or whatever. Whereas if I do default, I'm playing kind of Russian roulette with which thing am I actually getting the audio from. Let's see if there's any other questions I can answer on the stream. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up and see if there's anything else. I've got the chat in a pop-up. It's a pop-up. That's not it. There we go. Let's see. Oh, good job. Thanks. Sorry I missed it, but which editing software to use? Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that in episode 2, because I think, if I said at the beginning, I couldn't fit everything in this 45-minute session. It just became too big there. I'm not so teeny tiny in the corner now. I talk, the episode 2, which I actually have like 5 minutes left, I'm going to upload it to the YouTube channel, is I show both student and teacher green screen examples in, and I talk about, I'm going to include my short video on how to use Movie Maker and where to get it from, because a lot of people think it's gone, and it is not gone. You can still get it as long as you've got the file to start the installation. You can put the new Windows 10 version of Movie Maker, or actually I think it was Windows 7 or 8, anyway, on your PC and use that for free. However, I use a piece of software called PowerDirector. I started using it back in version 12. It's now, I've got version 18, and I've used multiple of those versions in between. I will tell you that get whatever version you can. There's almost no difference between any of the versions. In fact, nothing have I used on PowerDirector in 18 that I didn't have back in 12. They moved around some of the controls, and it's a little bit different, but in general, I would go on Amazon and I would look for whatever one they've got right now, or wherever, and get the least expensive version, because they make almost no difference between them. I think PowerDirector 365, which is their new one, is a subscription type thing, kind of like Acrobat has become now. I personally would shy away from that, because I don't want to keep paying for something that I just bought on a yearly basis that really has made no changes whatsoever. So I really like PowerDirector. I'm sure there's other pieces of software that work just as well, but I have bought copies of that for the ag department and for my art department, and for really any other teacher that really starts doing video and wants to start doing video editing. I think it works way better than Movie Maker. At least I'm used to using it that way. So hopefully that answered your question. I just saw your text, Dan. What do you mean? Who has a free download? Cyberlink PowerDirector does? I got you streaming on the other. Oh, you can see it yourself streaming on here. So hopefully that's okay, because now you're right there on the thing. Okay, I'd have to look. I wonder if it's free or not. If it's free like a test, that would be great just to try it. But it does everything, lets you change, do fades, do all kinds of stuff. That's how I made this whole video, because I really had to do a lot of chopping to get it down to 45 minutes, because of the way the OET software basically just cuts you off and your session's over at 45 minutes. So I wanted to make the video 44 minutes so that, as far as the people that came to the presentation that way, it was just there and all done, because I didn't want to worry about trying to hit in time. I wanted to know it was going to fit, which is why I moved a bunch of the stuff, like how to green screen yourself in things. I really have a fun time with the green screening part and trying to add things that will make it more entertaining for a student with the green screen stuff. And I mean, if anyone that's still in the chat wants me to show you some of that, I can show you some of that. I mean, we ride around in a Millennium Falcon looking at the planet Pluto as like, hey, if you were talking about it in science, and we're sitting in the fields of one of the Civil War battles, a reenactment, talking about the Civil War. If you're a social studies teacher, and I talk about how you can use these same things as a math teacher to screen capture you doing the writing while you're still talking to the students, explaining how to do the problem. I just think when you're watching a video, seeing I know it's not a planet anymore, Dan, thanks. I'm sorry, the stellar object, Pluto. How about that? But I really think after my next door neighbor came over, next door neighbor at school, came over and said, hey, I really like the videos, but I want to see you. That's when I started doing this, and Mr. Steve Baker there was here when we started doing it as a kind of a Tech Tuesday podcast type thing with us in it as well, to make it a little more entertaining for staff members to watch as opposed to just watching this capture of a screen. If nobody's got any other questions, I'm going to call this sucker done and hit stop streaming and finish that episode 2 so that I can post that and get it up there. So thank you very much for coming. Those of you that switched over to the YouTube session, unfortunately for the 40-some people that were in OETC session that didn't see that got lost, we'll be redoing it at 2:15 on Friday. Talk to you later.